welcome back for week 3. You've weathered week 1 and week 2 of this course. Only 5 more to go in your first course in School of Business Graduate School at Belhaven. So let's talk this week about time management. So that's probably the biggest concept we're going to talk about this week, and it may be one of the most important concepts that you are going to encounter in your graduate learning, or at least it's the most important skill that's going to help you be successful. Now, by the end of this week, you should be able to recognize some good principles of what good time management is. You should be able to analyze your own weekly time usage, kind of making a time budget that incorporates the time needed for graduate learning. Because believe me, if you don't plan for this graduate learning experience, it isn't going to just happen on its own. Okay. There's too many things in life that'll step on that time and steal that time from you. So if you want to be successful, you're going to need to budget your time. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those artificial intelligence resources that we can use. But first, let's talk about what we're learning in the long view. Are you learning something about leadership? Are your ideas of leadership changing? Okay. Are you getting a better concept, or a newer, fresher, or more challenging concept about what leading is about? Let's talk about a paradigm, a model of how leadership works. And you kind of have to understand Dr. Parrott's view of how leadership works as you begin to read the long view. Remember, we said leadership is a skill of influencing people to work enthusiastically toward goals identified as being for the common good. That's from James Hunter's book, The Servant. Okay, but it's a good, handy definition of leadership. Now, one concept that's very closely related to leadership is this idea of power. Power is the ability to coerce somebody, or to make them do something, or to prevent them from doing something. Okay. Power is the ability to impose your will over someone else's will because of either your position, or your might, or your ability to reward, or your ability to punish. These are all elements of power. Actually, you'll in one course coming up, you'll learn about French and Raven, some guys that wrote about power, and their 5 bases of social power, the ideas of where we get our idea of power in society and in organizations. But the power is the ability to make somebody do something. Now, you can either lead and influence them to do that, because they want to do it. You can lead them to want to do something, or you can make people do it. And for a while, the results will be pretty similar, but typically when you use a raw power, they won't be as long lasting. Authority, on the other hand, is related to that latter that we're talking about. It's the skill of getting people to willingly do what you want them to do because of your influence. But see how it ties back to that idea of influence. And when someone has authority, they can get people to willingly do things. The scriptures say that at one point Jesus was teaching, and the people listening to Jesus' teaching said, he teaches with one who has authority, not like the scribes who are just reading stuff to us. Jesus motivated people to do what he was trying to get them to do, and to think and behave and believe on him, because he's taught with authority, which is that skill of getting to people to do things, or the skill of influencing people. Some writers call authority the rightful and proper use of power. There's another definition you'll see someday, maybe as you study leadership more. But let's remember Dr. Parrott's view is that leadership is about influencing people, not just making people do things. The old paradigm, the old way we always thought about leadership in the past was like a pyramid. The CEO, the chief executive officer, the president, the big leader is at the tops, and junior leaders are are there as vice presidents. The middle managers come after them, and they kind of get things done. Then you got some supervisors and employees. And as you go up that pyramid, there's more power, and and as you approach that pinnacle of the pyramid, it's more about making people do things. That's how we thought of leadership in the past. The new paradigm kind of flips that a little bit, where we have we think not so much of it as employees, but we think of associates, people that are involved in this together. When you're together, you're an associate. You're associated with something. We have supervisors, middle managers, vice presidents, but influence flows up from the CEO to the associates. It's not that the CEO doesn't have power. Certainly, a CEO, as you get toward that point, each one of those levels has more power, certainly, and it's necessary. They have to have it sometime, but they get more things done out of influence coming up and through the organization than they do simply imposing their will from the top, as in the old paradigm of leadership. So you'll begin to see that as Dr. Parrott talks about leadership in the long view. In chapter 6, he talks about being accountable. Accountability is important for the leader and those reporting to the leader. Accountability is about a mindset of taking responsibility for one's own behavior. And this is really important in the new paradigm of behavior. You can't pass off responsibility in the new paradigm of behavior. Typically, we find people that lose the right and ability to lead effectively often are tripped up by their own lack of accountability. There's been pretty good bit of research on that, that you'll find as you look at things like leadership derailment, as they call it, is often associated with the leader failing to hold himself or herself accountable. Conflict of interest is discussed in chapter 7, and that gets at. Remember, he said you can be a statesman or showman, and sometimes we get into that situation in leadership where we want to benefit ourselves, but it comes at a cost to the organization and at a cost to those we're trying to lead. It is a conflict, and sometimes it's a derailing risk. It's something that can derail leaders with conflict of interest. Transparency is a good way to avoid conflict of interest. Be honest, be transparent with people, let people know your motives. Support structures and written policies are another. I just helped an organization, a brand new organization, a charity get started and get their start and get organized in business. And one of the things I was working with them was and strongly suggested they immediately come up with written policies on conflict of interest, just to sort of like the 10 Commandments. They're written there to remember you. We write down our policy, we write down what we think about conflict of interest, so it is always before us. And some companies actually use annual disclosures where people have to disclose their business interests and any potential conflicts of interest. And that's important because it helps. They're not perfect, but they help hold the leader accountable. It helps hold the organization accountable back to the leader as well. This mutual disclosure. Chapter 8 is a chapter on planning, and I love chapter 8 because I one of the things in my field that I really enjoy is planning. It is planning for organizations and planning for what you're going to do next and planning for what your organization does. But the problem is that can take on its life of its own. The plan gets overly complicated. The plan should empower you, protect you, and guide you, but not hem you in. It needs to be kind of bumpers and guardrails for you. The plan should be guardrails and keep you on a path, but it should not constrict you, and it shouldn't be so complicated that nobody can understand it. Uh, of another generation, Tom Peters was a great management expert in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. And he always said a good plan will do two things. It'll focus on just a few priorities, sometimes just one priority. Okay. It'll organize action over theory. It'll really focuses on what you're actually going to get done, and it will make constant improvement a priority. So keep those things in mind as you look at chapter 8 of the Law of You, which may be one of the most important chapters in there. But that's just my personal bias on that chapter. Okay. Let's move on to time management. Big concept for this week. Think about this. Every one of us has 168 hours available each week. No more, no less. Okay. You're not going to get any more time. At least not in a week. Okay. So you got to prioritize and manage our time. Now there's certain things that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to sleep. You're going to have to eat. You're going to have to attend to some family things. Okay. Those are not negotiable. I can't just say I'll get more done by not sleeping. Well, my body will tell me different. My body will take over and make me sleep at some point. Not to mention the effectiveness I'll lose by going without sleep. Okay. We sometimes think that it's stressful to think about it managing your time, but really managing your time is a stress reliever, because when you follow a good time management plan, you realize that whatever you're doing is the most important thing that you could be doing at that time. And you realize that by managing my time, I'm getting the most important things done. It doesn't mean the other things are not somewhat important or do not have a rank of important, but they're going to have to be important for a different time. And realize your grad work will probably take more time than you think it will, at least initially. Once you get organized, once you get time management under control, you'll learn how to be more efficient. You'll learn how to be more effective. You'll be more effective with how much time you allot to do things, or maybe when during the day or when during the week you try to do things. As I think I mentioned this last week, those who do well in graduate school have two characteristics, or that those that do not do well, I should say, have two characteristics. They don't manage their time well, and they don't follow instructions. Many times these two run together. Okay. Both of these items are under your control. Yes, you can't control what everybody else is in your life is doing, but you can exert more control. You are not at the total mercy of everything else. If there's so much chaos in your life that you cannot control anything, perhaps it's not the time for graduate school. You might have to put grad school on hold for a while. And that's happened. In my experience and many other people's experience, we had to take a step back just because of other events in your life. And that's okay. That's part of time management. Okay. As a personal testimony, I was changing jobs. I was in the middle of a move. I was in the middle of a new job, and the new job situation was taking about 16 hours a day of work. So I got permission from my doctoral program to take 3 months off. I did that, and I was the better for it. Okay. And that's part of macro time management, and it's okay. Because those things were under my control. I was able to not try to do something I wasn't in control of. Okay. Success in graduate education is not about how smart you are. It's not your IQ. It's largely about how well you manage time. Yes, we've all got work. We want to go worship. We want to rest. We've got commitments with family. We like to play a little bit. Everybody needs to play a little bit. And we've got to work that study in there. Okay. So it's a matter of finding the right time on the weekly calendar to do these things, the right time and location. Now, in some of the work, you're going to read some things this way, some resources I've given you this week about uh, time management. Take those time management tips very seriously and look at your own situation, apply them to your own situation. Plan honestly. Okay? Be honest with what your commitments are and what can shift. Because if you don't plan honestly, reality will impose itself uh, on your plan that you built on not being honest about your time commitments. Realize graduate school will not last forever. I spent a lot of time on my doctoral program, and my wife says, I realize, she put it to me, she said, I realize how busy you are, how this is. I know I will get you back someday. She says, you will not be doing this forever, and it will be beneficial. Realize it will not last forever. Talk it over with your family and let them realize it will not be forever. Get them on your side. Let them help you develop a support system where others in your family can say, let me take that over for you if you've got big family responsibilities. Okay? Develop that support system. Let your family help you out. Be willing to say no, or be willing to say later, or I can't do that until the break between classes. Or that is just something you'll say, I'd like to do that, but it's just something I can't engage in until I finish this program or until I finish this course. Okay? And it's okay to say no or later. Because why? Because is it going to last forever? And realize that unexpected things will happen. And you'll have to shift the plan. You'll have a time plan. Unfortunately, it will not work perfectly because you're not in control of everything else in the world, and things will happen to you, but that's okay. By having a plan, it gives you the ability to cope with the unexpected things. Now, here's a suggested plan that I found very effective. It's a 7-day plan, and I found this one very effective for graduate work myself. And I was at one point, I was in a doctoral program that's structured very much like your master's program with weekly submissions, discussion questions often, and weekly submissions. Here's how I approached the week. Day one, I read the assignments. Typically, that was Monday. I read. Monday was read night. I came home, I read my assignments, I took notes, and I looked ahead into what I had to do that week. So in my reading, I was already making mental notes for whether what I'm reading, how it's going to fit into a discussion question, or how it's going to fit into a paper I have to write. I'm already, by looking ahead as I'm reading more effectively as I go along. Day two, I reread and began doing research. If I had to do research, if I had to look up things, that typically started on Tuesday. And started planning for my discussion questions. If I had discussion questions that needed to be submitted on Wednesday, I planned for them and made sure that I effectively put together kind of a scheme for my answer. On Wednesday is when I'd actually answer those discussion questions. Because I started planning ahead for them on Tuesday, it didn't take me long to answer them on Wednesday. I can answer those discussion questions and then spend the rest of my set aside time for reading, for research and looking up things for future papers. Fourth day of the week, typically Thursday, I would respond to the discussion questions. Typically, you're going to have discussion questions that have to be posted on Wednesday night or has to be posted by Wednesday, and you'll respond to other learners. Go ahead and get that out of the way on Thursday and get that out of the way. Then keep working on that written assignment for the week. Friday, I would draft that written assignment. Now, if I was real efficient during the week, I might start drafting some of it on Thursday. But it's okay not to do it till Friday or Saturday, because your subconscious mind can actually be working on things you've read and researched and ideas that you've encountered. Saturday, I would often get up early in the morning or review my written assignment and submit it. Or I might finish writing it that morning and submit it. And from then on, I had the rest of the weekend free. The rest of Saturday and Sunday, then in the week, first day of the week on the calendar, I was rest. I would totally take a break from my graduate work on that seventh day. So we had the Lord's Day for that, and we needed the rest, and everything else got done in the first 6 days. Now, this is a plan. You don't have to use exactly this plan, but I'm providing here to show you that it can be done. It can be it can be systemized, and basically every week's approach was just like the other weeks, um, which helped me be efficient. It helped me be effective, and it reduced. It looks like, well, that's going to be monotonous. No, it helped reduce the stress of monotony by helping me just know where I was every week. The stress was a lot lower. You might want to develop a plan much like this for yourself. Working with Axio. Okay. Axio, I've talked about. I have another little video I provided you to show you how to get started with Axio, but it's right there in Canvas. Axio is a very comprehensive AI tool that's been provided at no cost to you, no additional cost to you through Belhaven University and Canvas. By now, you should be conversing with Axio. You can write questions for Axio in plain language. Just type or dictate your questions in a conversational way. Tell Axio the details you need. And tell Axio if you want sources cited or not. It'll actually cite its sources for you. Build on what Axio tells you and respond to what Axio tells you. If Axio gives you an idea, and you can actually go back to Axio and say, hey, Axio, tell me some more about that idea you just gave me. Or you can probe into that Axio response and get deeper and deeper. You've got an assignment this week to help you to write a time management plan for your written assignment this week. Actually, just a hint, Axio can help you with that. I've used it for that type of thing before. Try it out. This would be a good place to try it. So what's next? Complete those reading assignments. Don't write anything before reading everything, I always say. Complete the writing assignments. I think you have some discussion questions this week. Naturally, if you have any questions or problems, reach out to your instructor, and we look forward to seeing you next week.